Sorry.
It's okay.
We lost track of time.
I hope Stephanie's recording. Welcome to the Shawnee County 2024 budget hearings. First up is Planning Department. Joni, it's all yours.
Good morning, Commissioners. Shawnee, Director of the Planning Department. Get started on. Did a PowerPoint to present some information to you, which I don't want to spend too much time going through what exactly the Planning Department does, but I felt like it was important to at least recognize a few of the duties that occur within our office because I am asking for an additional position this year. So organizational structure, what we have at this point is myself plus 3 positions. The Planning and Zoning Administrator is our vacant position that was held by Anna Ortega, who retired earlier this year. The Planning and Development Coordinator is a position that you had reclassified earlier this year, and then the Planning Specialist is the one that was created after I had eliminated the O&A position within my office. And Jolie and Courtney both have been doing a lot in the last few months to try and get us caught back up, but we're still working on trying to keep current. So a lot of the stuff that you see in our office in front of you falls under land use planning. You see a lot of the current planning items, which is our rezoning cases, any subdivisions or plats, which honestly we don't have a whole lot that come through the unincorporated county. Conditional use permits, variances that are handled first by the Planning Commission and Board of Zoning Appeals and then come to your office. However, what you don't always see is all of the stuff that happens in our office on a daily basis that falls within what would be considered long-range planning. That could be our writing and developing of the comprehensive plan, zoning regulations, the regulations which we are working on now, which are the wind and solar farm regulations. Those are things that happen within the office, take a lot of research and time. And I would say even bigger than that are the development services that occur. That's all of our permitting. And Jolie has been handling most of those at this point with support from both Courtney and myself. Those are all of our building permits, swimming pools, solar panels, all of the commercial, anything floodplain related, our fireworks, home occupations and such. That takes up a lot of our daily activity because those are things that are happening every day in and out with people coming into our office. The next thing that takes up a lot of our time is actually the administration of all of the regulations. We get phone calls every day asking questions about what can I do with my parcel, how can I divide it, can I sell it, can I use it for this, can I build that? And sometimes these parcels aren't always easy for us to look at and consider. Sometimes that takes up days of our time, sometimes weeks. It involves sometimes reaching out to Public Works or mapping, various other environmental health, other entities that help us to answer questions. And it's not always an open shut case. It's not always easy for us to figure out. And so that takes up a large amount of the time within our office. A few other things that we do: technical support and answering questions to other departments and agencies, the city. Our office is the floodplain manager for the county. So we handle any educational materials or questions related to the floodplain, but we also are in charge of maintaining our membership in the community rating system for the National Floodplain Insurance Program. And so what that does is Shawnee County has a high amount of floodplain in our area, and anybody who owns property or has a house within that area should maintain insurance, flood insurance. If you have a mortgage, it's federally required that you have floodplain insurance. And so we participate in a program called the CRS program that gives we do outreach, we do education, we answer questions, we publish materials, we maintain maps and the website, and all of those things put together give us discounts on that insurance program. And we have to do annual reports to them, and then they also do 5-year reviews, and our office is in charge of doing all of that. So budget overview. What you see here is our 2023 budget versus our 2024. and you will see a significant increase. And I recognize that, and I understand that it is a significant increase, and so I wanted to point out a couple of things. First and foremost is that personnel services accounts for 98% of my budget for the planning department. We do have some supplies and contractual services that we pay for. That includes things like mailing out and publication notices that we have for various meetings, supplies that we need internally in the office. However, really, the majority of my budget is just the people who work there. And so anytime we make a change to the personnel of the people who work inside that office, it makes a significant impact on my budget. What you see is last year we had 97%, it was $328,897, and this year I'm asking for $479,439. And so I'm going to go into what the differences are from last year. From fiscal year 2023 to what we would anticipate for next year, a lot of that accounts for annual and step increases in the current employee salaries. I decreased for the fiscal year 24 budget, I did decrease the planning and zoning administrator position. Last year when we brought it in, the position was still full, and so we did it at her current salary, which was a step 9, I believe, or a step 10. Because that job is now vacant, it reverts back to a step 1, so that decreases our budget there just a little bit. However, we then reclassified the administrative assistant position to our planning and development coordinator, and that included a salary or an hourly wage increase for her. We also eliminated the OA2 position, and then I created the planning specialist position, and so that accounts for the elimination of any union salary, but then added to the classified position as well. And then in regards to changes that I would like to see for 2024. My first request is I would like to add a planner position. Historically, in the planning department, we have not had a quote-unquote planner position since 2009. It did start out, so our department has been open since I think 2004 or 5, and there was a planner position at that time. Since 2009, that position was closed and has not been filled, and the director has handled all of the planning duties, and I do handle those duties as of this time. However, what would make a little bit of sense is to have a separate planner so that that position can take on those duties as a full-time position, because it is a full-time position. Right now, having to divide my time between any of the duties that a director does as a whole, and then doing the administration of the zoning and other regulations, and then having to do the planning cases on top of that, as well as the potential for all of our new regulations that we have coming up. It is too much for one person to handle, and although my staff do help handle some of those duties, it's just too much for a single person to do. So what this would include would be a new position with a salary beginning at $80,000, including benefits. That's starting at a range 16, step 1. This is similarly situated to what the City of Topeka has for their planning positions. When you see a City of Topeka planner position posted, I did some research and I looked to see where they were starting their planners at, and it was just right along those same lines of the dollar amount per hour. And then if you compare that to how it breaks down within my office, as I've been reorganizing the positions and putting them back into a better order, what you see is the planning and zoning administrator job, which is vacant, is currently at a range 68, which is the same as a range 18 if it were an hourly position. This planner position would fall then at range 16. The planning and zoning coordinator falls at range 14, and then the planning specialist at range 12. So it evenly steps it down the duties of the office and the range of their experience and the items that they take over and handle within the office. The second thing that you see within my budget is that I would like to fund a planning intern position. We actually have an intermittent position in our office already existing. However, we haven't been utilizing that position. It hasn't been funded based on our research since, I think, 2019. It was utilized on 2 different occasions in 2013 and then 2019 for some part-time assistance when they needed additional help. And it has just been a temporary position. It's not something that's been utilized on a regular basis. What I would anticipate is that I could hire an intern from one of the local universities, and the amount of money that I have asked for this would allow me to pay up to $15 an hour, and then depending on the hours or whatever extras I have potentially within the budget, I could go up a little bit. I did communicate with an intern that works for the city of Topeka. I had been working with her on a different project, and so I just started asking her questions. Where do you go to school? You know, how many people are there in your class? Do all of them have internships? You know, are there people that are looking for positions? How much do you make? How much, you know, how many hours do you work? And she indicated that from their program, she's from the KU master's degree program, and a lot of them have internships and they make approximately $15 to $17 an hour. And so I felt like this was a good starting place. At some point I wished I would have asked for a little bit more just in case I need to get to that $17 an hour. But, you know, this is a position that we haven't historically used, and it may not be something that I need 20 hours a week every week of the year. And so I think that this is a good starting point. But having someone come in as an intern not only allows us to have someone that's building up an education and looking to move into those positions in the future, but also allows us to think down the road. Like, what happens if this internship turns into a better position for them and is someone that we can bring into Shawnee County and start working with them on a long-term basis. Then the last thing here is to fund some allowance for overtime. This would just allow me to fill in the gaps when necessary. If I need to have any one of my hourly employees work some overtime. This year, one of my employees has worked a lot of overtime trying to cover all of the work. When there were just 2 of us in there, the only way for us to handle our daily duties was for her to take on that overtime. We've significantly cut that back now that we have a 3rd person in there working, and we're going to continue to get to the point where we hopefully eliminate the need for overtime, but having that allowance helps me in times of need. So what does the Planning Commission activity look like? This is a 3-year review. In terms of Planning Commission activity, this year has been one of the slowest Planning Commission years that we've had for what I consider quite a while. It actually has been a blessing in disguise for us because we cannot handle a whole lot of planning cases on top of the already very busy permitting season that we've had. This has started to pick up though. These numbers are through May 2023. We did have a meeting last night. We do have one in August, and I have several communications going on for other cases that will be coming up within the next few months. Board of Zoning Appeals, we haven't had Board of Zoning Appeal cases come up for several years, and this is not unusual, I would say. Typically, these cases are appeals for decisions that have either been made out of my office or, you know, throughout the Planning Commission, et cetera. If they don't like a decision, they can appeal it. And then the Board of Zoning Appeals reviews those before it could potentially go on to Board of County Commissioners and or District Court, if ever. Building permit activity, we are right on task, if not a little above what would be the halfway point. These numbers are through May of 2023, and what you can see for the 23 numbers, I was gonna highlight, but you can, it's not happening, it's okay. So for 2023, what you can see is we had done single-family residences, 54 of them as of May, the end of May. That's about the halfway point for what we had done over the year before. I think that the more significant that we have seen have been accessory structures and add-ons. Housing costs and building costs have skyrocketed, and it hasn't really slowed things down within our department. We still see a lot of people coming in and building. The housing crunch within Topeka and Shawnee County has created a need for people to build. We see a lot of land division going on. Some of that occurs within the 3-mile radius where the city of Topeka handles those plats or subdivisions, but we have actually seen a whole lot going on outside of that 3 mile. And there's exemption rules that allow people to divide up their land into 3 acres with 200 feet of frontage. And we constantly have people coming in with new lots that have been created so that they can build their houses. We see a lot of barn dominiums. We see a lot of ag buildings and accessory structures. There's been a whole lot of swimming pools this year. Solar has been very big as well. And we do, you guys all know that we've been in front of you for solar farms where it's a utility company that has come in and applied for that solar. What you probably don't realize is that we issue building permits all the time for residences and businesses that are putting a few solar panels on their own property to support their own use. That's not regulated under any of our regulations. It's an allowable use. We just do it as an accessory structure or as an add-on to a home, and it occurs regularly. Revenue generated, we're pretty consistent about bringing in $200,000 a year in regards to our various generations of revenue. We bring in money from planning commission meetings, a lot of permit applications, of course, our annual fireworks stands. There are a few penalties. Those I anticipate will decrease because they had been doing the push pin activity through the appraiser's office. That isn't really going on anymore. They're not doing it as a push pin violation any longer. What they do now is they just send us notice if they've noticed that they have a building that's been put up and they don't find a permit for it in the system, then they send it over to us. My strategic plan, if you had noticed, it was lengthy for the next 5 years. I have a whole lot of goals. I would say the two, well, I can't even say that there's 2 large ones. The most important and the most up and coming would be if I can increase my staffing and the online building permit portal. That had originally started with IT working on hopefully doing a portal for us in-house, but they really just don't have the time to create that portal. And so we're gonna start looking at options outside of systems that are already up and ready to go. Something that can benefit not only my office, but also environmental health, public works, the appraiser's office, weed department. There's a whole lot of people who can utilize this permitting portal system if we have it up and running. And so we're working on that over the next couple of weeks. I'm also updating the zoning regs. We haven't started on that yet, but we have started on our wind farm and solar farm regulations. We had a discussion about it last night at our meeting, our planning commission meeting, and next month in August, we're gonna spend a significant amount of time discussing and coming up with a plan for how we are going to do those regulations. What does it look like? Who are we gonna get input from? Who's gonna help? Other things that we really need to do is continue and review our comprehensive plan, update plat regulations. Our floodplain regulations take up a lot of our time. Training and education with certifications and continuing education, cleaning up document manager. And as I've talked with each of the 3 of you, I have a goal with our 3-mile radius. I really would like, and this isn't on my strategic plan because I feel like this is something that is bigger than the strategic plan, but I really would like to spend some time working with the city of Topeka and with the county to determine what the 3-mile radius really looks like. How can we reduce that? How can we take over some of that jurisdiction and take more of that work on within my office versus constituents having to go back and forth between both the county and the city in some situations. So those are all of the things that I had to present. If you have specific questions for me, I would love to be able to answer those.
Joni, if we reduce that donut down, would one additional person be able, would that allow your staff to handle that?
The short answer is no.
Okay.
But it would help for now. I think what my goal in adding just one planner position for now is we don't need to, without having a plan between us and the city, we don't need a whole bunch of staff to sit there and wait for it to happen. What we need is a plan to start stair-stepping towards that. And to get a planner into the office and start working and to understand how Shawnee County and the city of Topeka work, then while we're working out that plan with the city, if it happens, that person would already be there and knowing what's going on and be able to take over some of that. And then I would anticipate if that happens, that I would probably be back here in the next year, asking for some additional staffing. But timing all depends on how and when that would happen.
You think we'd get enough revenue to pay for that person?
So I anticipate it's not going to necessarily be about the revenue. It's going to be about the amount of work. I don't know that the platting and subdividing cases really are going to bring in a whole lot of revenue because we have set fees that we charge for specific actions. And the planning cases and the platting are set based on the number of acres. It starts with a flat fee, and then per acre after that, it's a certain amount. It's not like our building permits where you come in and you build a $500,000 house and we charge a percentage of that versus a $200,000 house. Those building permit costs are very different depending on what they're doing. This is a little bit different. And so, no, I'll be honest, I don't think that the revenue generated would pay for a position.
Commissioner Rippon, the only real additional way to add revenue to the planning department would be to do a massive overhaul, which was contemplated at the time of the adoption of the comprehensive plan and the first county code. At one time, there was discussion about addition of code inspectors, a much more aggressive planning department where you would have code inspectors, you would have a code court, but there was a lot more cost involved. We would have had to ramp up the planning department 3-4-fold to be able to handle that kind of endeavor. And so we looked at the cost of that, we looked at the potential revenue from that, and that was not a direction that the county wanted to go at that time, which is why we adopted a county code that just makes it, you assert that you are complying with the county code, which if the person does not, the violations would be handled in a civil court through a lawsuit. But that's really about the only way to generate more revenue through the planning department would be if we had code inspectors and a code court, violation rules. And again, that was not a direction the county wanted to go at that time.
Yeah, increase in fees and fines would be a way. The way that I see the department is that we do generate some revenue, but it doesn't support my department as a whole. My department is a service-based department. We are there to assist the people who are within the county, and if we charged, we could charge hourly for the consulting that we do for people. We have people call us all the time for, trying to figure out how they do a business or how to put something together. And if we charged fees for consulting, maybe we would start making up for the time that we spend and bring in more revenue. But I don't see that as what the Shawnee County Planning Department is meant to be. I don't know that we need to charge fees. We're there to help and assist people of the county.
The solar and wind regulations, where are you at this point?
So what we did was I have done a whole lot of research to figure out where and how to present this for Shawnee County. I've reached out to several other counties, Pottawatomie, Douglas County, done some research on what Sedgwick County had done and Johnson County, Osage. There are a whole lot of regulations out there. Butler County, I am contacts with their director in Butler County and Marion County as well. One of the good things is that I went to a planning and zoning director conference a couple of months ago, and I made a lot of really good contacts, people that I can email when I have questions. And so I did that. I've reached out to people and asked them, what did you do? How did you handle it? Where did you guys end up? And so a lot of them have sent me information. They also have a lot of information on their websites, and so I've been able to pull that information together. I started a presentation and just kind of got our planning commissioners ready last night at our meeting to let them know in August we are going to start the formal process of putting this together. We feel like public input is going to be big. I don't know, I could myself write the regulations and present it, and then we could just move along, you know, with whatever changes. But we feel like from the county perspective that it would be good to get public input on, you know, do they want wind farms in Shawnee County? What size solar farms would be suitable? Other counties kind of have them broken down into 2 or 3 categories. 20 acres for solar farms, 20 acres or less, and then 20 to 100 acres, and then 100 acres up to 1,500 or 2,000. Where is it that Shawnee County falls into that? And so we need to start evaluating what it is that we see for the future of Shawnee County, and I think that having the planning commissioners give input on that allows me to better write regulations. And then we're not going to write them from scratch. We're not going to start and reinvent the wheel. We are going to take what regulations have been put together and been found suitable for other counties. We can piecemeal that. We can take what various counties had done and we can look at it and say, well, we really like this concept and we really like that concept. And then I think what else is important is communication with other departments. What is it that Public Works finds is important? Because I know that they are highly concerned about the roads and the infrastructure within the county if we have wind farms coming in and driving big trucks and equipment through our county. What do we do in regards to payment in lieu of taxes? Because right now the state of Kansas offers these large utility companies and whomever else 10 years tax-free property taxes. And so they're not paying taxes on that. So can we get a payment in lieu of taxes? Do we have them bond? How do we set up a decommissioning? And so we're putting all of that together, and we're going to have at our August meeting an agenda item where we discuss and the Planning Commission can make some decisions on how to move forward. And I asked them to each do a little bit of their own research. What can they find? What do they think is suitable for Shawnee County? What do they want? And then we will put that together and do some presentations. We want public input. Of course, we will have to have public hearings and come to you. And, you know, there are some wind regulations that had been put together and started by a prior planning director, and I will utilize that as well. It's not to say that we won't use what he had put together, but I think that we need to find out what the county really wants. It's not what Joni Thadani as the planning director wants, it's what the county wants. And then I will put that together to be presented to not only the Planning Commission, but to you as the Board of County Commissioners.
Mr. Chairman? Yep. One of the principal complaints that I have as a commissioner for the planning department is people that are upset with wanting to start a business in an accessory building, or people that are running a business out of an accessory building and then they have a complaint. That seems to be one of the areas where we see a lot of activity in the unincorporated Shawnee County. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I will 100% agree that the 2 largest violations that we see are someone running a business out of an accessory building and building something without a permit. Building something without a permit is very easy. We send out a letter, hey, you need to fill out this application. They get it filled out, it's added to the tax rolls, it's moved on. Running a business is a much bigger issue because I would say, especially during the time of COVID, a lot of people started working from home. They had great ideas for starting up businesses, and all of a sudden we have seen a whole lot of business popping up in their various homes, which is okay. You can work from home, you can run a business out of your home. The problem is when you start using your accessory buildings to house large equipment, construction material, trucks. You put out a sign in front of your house, you have customers coming and going. Those are not allowable uses in a majority of Shawnee County unless you fall within certain districts. And if you have a house within that district, then you probably, you shouldn't have a house in those districts because they're meant for something different. So my opinion is I'm not at all opposed to businesses out of homes. I'm not at all opposed to businesses out of accessory buildings, but that's not the way our regulations read right now. And so I have to enforce what the regulations say, again, not what I want. We are what I would consider a complaint-driven department. We don't go out looking for people who are doing something wrong. I am well aware of a whole lot of people that are doing something that don't comply with our regulations, but unless it's being complained about, I don't send them letters, I don't enforce it. we don't get highly involved. Now, is that necessarily fair? I don't think so, because if I know about something, should I be enforcing it? Well, probably. But we're not an enforcement entity at this stage. As you refer back to our code court, that would turn into a code court situation where we need inspectors and all of those things, and that's not what the focus of the county has been historically. So we do it on a complaint-driven basis. As we redo the zoning regulations, it's one of the things that I think that we should take a hard look at. Businesses within an accessory building don't always have a negative impact on the surrounding neighbors. And what we are trying to prevent in a lot of situations is a negative impact between people who live next to each other. Can you enjoy your piece of property and your home and your land if your neighbor has a construction business going on? Well, maybe not. But if your neighbor has a boutique, maybe it's not affecting you so much. Or if your neighbor has, is teaching swimming lessons or has a hair salon. And some of those things are allowable uses already. We just have to, I feel like, relook at it and see what is it that we could do to expand the service space. A plumber who operates their business from home, doesn't have a separate office, keeps their truck in their accessory building and keeps supplies within their accessory building. Is that harming people? Probably not, because they don't have customers coming and going from their business, their home. They're going to the houses and they're just taking the supplies with them. So is it an allowable use? No. But should it be? I don't necessarily have a problem with it. It varies on what the complaint is and what the business is and how it's impacting those surrounding.
I would think that that would be one area that if it was allowable for that, the permitting process, if there was a permitting fee, that would be the other source for additional revenue to offset some of the expenses of your office.
Correct. And we do have a home occupation permit now where if you're operating a business out of your home, you're supposed to apply for a permit. It's a $50 upfront fee, and then annually you come in and you reapply and you pay $10. Honestly, we have 30 people who do that, and it's frankly one of the things that I would probably remove unless we expand the concept of a home-based business and what you have to go through to be permitted to operate your business from home. Right now, having 30 people apply and pay us $10 a year, that's $300. We spend way more time and money processing those than we take in.
Mr. Mays?
I think that's probably a conversation for another day.
Absolutely.
But I see where you're going with this, and I think it would be helpful if we could get a list of the fees that you have. So I went to your website, and the only thing I can find on there is the flood management or floodplain development permits, and those were set in 2010. A long, long time ago. Ted Inslee's signatures on the resolution. So, I mean, it's something that we probably need to look at and figure out like what makes sense and what doesn't. The potential for wind and solar to partially fund your department is there as well. I know you guys are putting a lot of work into writing those regs, and there's still a lot more work to be done. And I think that the folks that are causing you to do that work are probably the ones that need to pay for it. And so I think at some point that's something that needs to be part of those regulations is a fee structure that perhaps graduates as time goes by as well, or due to the size of the project or something like that. But I also went into your fee calculator, and you just enter a dollar amount, and I put in $1 million, and the filing fee was $2,149, so it's 0.2%.
It's very low.
So exceptionally low.
Yep.
And
Although
so-
I would say, if I can interrupt, that the
please.
builders who come in have complained that they're high and that they got increased when the building code went into place, and they didn't see any return for that investment. They thought that they would get inspections and such. And I'm not aware whether the fee actually did increase when the building code went into play, because I did not work for the county at that time. But I agree that the fees are low. And the difference of what the builders believe may be a little bit different. But they are gonna want something, I guess, in exchange. If we raise the fees, what else are they getting for that? That's one of the things that I've heard.
Okay, so the other thing I did want to mention is the staffing. I know you're asking for an additional 2 people, right? So an intern, which I'm fully supportive of hiring an intern. I think that's good practice, and it leads to possibly filling those positions that are open.
Correct.
And we've seen this with a couple of other departments as well, that we've got open positions, and yet we're still adding more positions. And that, I think, is a concern to me, where rather than adding another position, do we need to change the vacant one to maybe accomplish 2 things and pay more in order to get a qualified applicant? Because I mean, it's frustrating, and I'm probably especially frustrating for you, to have a good paying position out there, what seemed like a good paying position. Evidently it's not good enough, and it just sits empty without applicants. And so, I mean, do we need to just restructure that? I know you did it as a deputy for a while and didn't get any people that way, and so.
Well, and so I guess I have done that. Like you said, the position, taking the planning duties, I would so the planning and zoning administrator job, I took a bunch of duties away from that position because they were duties that had to continue. They couldn't wait. They had to continue. And so those are the ones that got shifted over to Jolie and the planning and development coordinator. The planning and zoning administrator job has been done, and I've submitted that to HR, and I'm waiting on them to assist, because I'm going to have to probably bring that position back to you guys for review and approval, because it has so significantly changed. And honestly, that position, I might move down from the range 18 to a lower position. Now, the option of adding the planning duties to that are possible, but that's what I did with the director job, or the deputy director job, sorry. The deputy director job, and then when we, in essence, downgraded it back to the planning and zoning administrator job, those duties really are all kind of there already, and we aren't getting applicants. And, the planning and zoning administrator job, I haven't paid money to push it out there to other places because a lot of those duties were removed, and we need to review and have you reapprove this new position. I don't know that that's enough. Maybe starting off, that would be enough to help, but in moving forward, it won't be enough to handle all of the work that would be occurring within the office, in my opinion. Because we are really taking say for instance, the floodplain, I'm handling being the floodplain manager. Right now, we haven't had to do a whole lot with that, but our annual review will be coming up, so that will take a significant amount of time. That position handles the floodplain stuff. They handle a lot of the zoning administration work, which I'm also doing right now. And so I'm handling a lot of that work that really needs to be done by somebody else. And if then we add planning on top of that, I feel like it'll be too much for one position to handle. But I defer to the wishes of the BCC, honestly. If that's what you wish for me right now, that's fine. We accept that.
And I guess, so you have 3 people in your department right now?
3 people on 1 vacancy, right?
Right. So, but if you were able to fill that 1 vacancy, I mean, that's a 33% increase in your workforce. I know it seems like a lot right now, and I'm sure it is. If we have 1 more person, it would feel like a lot less probably, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. And that would get us to the point where we could handle what we currently have to allow us to do the duties that we have now and, the writing of the regulations and such that we have. What that wouldn't, in my opinion, allow me to do is really push to extend that or to reduce the 3 mile. So my concept of the planner is not that I want to have 2 new positions come on right now to handle the work that we have now. The concept of the planner is to be able to push for additional work and taking on new things, not what is currently in front of us. And so, the benefit of the current position that I have open is if I can get that in front of you guys soon and we can really push to advertise that and hire my current vacant position, we could handle what we need for now. And then the planner position, which wouldn't come into play until next year, then gives me a little bit of a stair-step time to allow us to start crafting the potential to take over more of that 3 mile, because that planner position then would help offset any work that we would have for the future, not necessarily what we've got going on right now.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions?
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jim.
Thank you guys so much.
Thanks.
All right, it's 9:40. Ready for solid waste. Bill?
I took 10 minutes of his Awesome. But I don't know how to get out of it.
Wow.
It's magic.
Magic.
Stephanie and her magic.
Good morning, Commissioners. Bill Sutton, Shawnee County Solid Waste. And I am here today to give you my 2024 budget proposal. And I will take this opportunity to kind of give a performance view of how we're doing this year and kind of an overview of the department and everything that we stand for. And then I'll take about 7 seconds to throw some big numbers out there. And then I'll let you guys ask questions about my budget. All right. So starting off with the mission, we are a user fee funded department within the county, and I cannot stress that enough. All of my funds come from, a majority come from user fees from my customers. I have a very small slice that is funded by the landfill host fee, and that mainly goes to offset the expenses out to HHW. Again, so we provide an efficient collection of all solid waste material within the county, and we give our customers an option. They can go with us and they can go with one of the other companies. So again, I am user fee funded and my customers vote with their money. Talking about my personnel overview, here's basically what we have. We have 108 assigned personnel, 108 people on the books. I do have about 4 or 5 vacancies right now. You see over there onto the far right, the HHW. I have 4 personnel over at the HHW, and again, they handle a free disposal of all household hazardous waste within the county. I'm also responsible for funding the maintenance and repairs at the old landfill at the west side of 21st Street out there, so that falls underneath my department's purview as well. Current fleet over there on my left, that is I have 62 62 vehicles, and over there on the right is the current vehicles that we have on order. So as you can see, I still have 6 vehicles that we ordered from 2022 that have not been delivered, and then I have all 8 that were ordered this year, and that's just a byproduct of the supply chain that we've been experiencing the past couple years. So as we talked about, you kind of see my 5-year growth here. I'm using the 5 years as on all these graphics, and you can see over the past 5 years I had a 9.6% growth, 1.5, 2.6, 3.1, and then this year through July I'm already up to 1.5, and this is indicative that my customers are satisfied with the way that we're doing business. We're not the cheapest in town, we're not the most expensive in town, but I believe that we provide the best service for our customers. And you can see that bump in 2021 and 2022. That was a product of a local company getting bought out by a bigger company, and a lot of those customers came over to us. So it's been a pretty significant and pretty busy year, even this year. My recycle customers, as you guys know, we had some significant changes in our recycling program starting this year, and we'll get into some slides later with that. But I started out with 48,000 customers, and I'm down to 43,000 customers. So we've had 10.6% opt out of recycling, and that has not been a bad thing by no means. And I will kind of illustrate that later on as well. My revenue, this is my 2022 pie chart of revenue. Total revenue in 2022 was 14.7, and approximately 75% of that comes from residential pickup. So both county and rural make up for 11 million and some change. You see my commercial slice, and then the other various little slices there. To include the landfill surcharge, which is strictly based off the tonnage that Rolling Meadows takes in out there. So I get $2.50 for every ton that gets delivered out there to Rolling Meadows, to include myself. So I pay that fee, and then it gets refunded back to me. And again, that money goes to offsetting the fees out of the HHW. Now, I will highlight that WM Recycling, that was income from 2022, and that's when we was getting a rebate for our recycling commodities. That was under the old contract, and as you guys are very well aware, we signed a new contract this year, so that WM Recycle more than likely will never ever get a rebate check ever again from Waste Management, just because of the commodity prices are not there. Talking about my revenue, this just kind of illustrates the growth in revenue that we've had, all the way from, again, a 5-year from 19 million. We're estimated to finish this year on 16.4, and then I'm forecasting 16.8 next year. And I think that might be a little bit optimistic, but we'll see how we finish, Q3 this year, whether or not we have to do a rate increase. Thanks to the rate increases in the past 2 years, I think we're at a point that we do not have to be making those big 5% rate increases. If we do something, it can be a marginal 1 or 2% that, people are more comfortable with. Talking about my recycling rebate, this again, another 5-year. You can tell back in 2021, we had, and this is by month, we had that large $21,000 check that we received, and then you can see that big fall off to where we actually paid $52,700 to recycle, and that was in January when we first started off. Last month we paid $46,000, and again, these costs are being offset by the recycling fees that we are now charging our customers. So this is thanks to those fees, we can absorb this. Going back to those 10.6% that opted out, you can kind of see the decline in tons. This is 6 months, a year, and then 6 months this year. So we've fallen off considerably. And where it really helps out is my contamination rate. We started the year at 46% contamination, and we're already down to 27%. And that is through the elimination of those drop boxes that we had out there, and then those customers that probably weren't recycling correctly to begin with. And then talk about the commodities. Again, this is kind of where this is from January 2022. Really not a whole lot of upward movement in my commodities. Everything's kind of staying flat. So as long as this stays flat, there will be no rebate that we receive for recycling commodities.
Bill, what's the OCC?
Okay, so OCC is old corrugated containers, so in other words, cardboard.
Okay.
So that is, wait, I'm not even gonna try to figure this thing out. That is my OCC line right there, if I remember correctly. Wait, OCC is way down there at the bottom. So that is right there, and it is flat all the way across the board. The spike is aluminum, and then this blue is HDPE milk jugs. So everything else, that's the only plastic that's really worth anything right now, is the HDPE natural or milk jugs, non-colored, and then everything else is pretty stationary and flat. All right, getting into my 5-year plan, it's pretty benign. It's just trucks, and it's on our 5-year rotation. So next year, I'm looking to purchase those trucks and then all the way out to 2028. So you can kind of see, we kind of go in waves where we're running out at 1.3, and then in 2027, 2028, it's under a mil, and then probably in 2029 and 2030, it'll come back north of a mil. So
Mr.
just
Bill,
kind yes, sir.
on your CIP, every single CIP just says end of useful life. How are we as a commissioner supposed to give feedback or input to a priority? I assume every vehicle is broken or at the end of life, so they're all a 1? Which one has a higher priority, which one has a lower priority? I have no way to score this.
Okay. And this was established prior to me taking the position or becoming the director. They developed a 5-year rotation. So they determined that 5 years was the useful life of a refuse or recycling truck, just because of the wear and tear that it takes out there. So at the end of 5 years, even though we are getting a very good trade-in value because we do maintain our vehicles, that's when we determine that's when they need to be traded in at that 5-year mark.
So then from your view, every one of these should be scored as a 1 because it's at the end of the 5 years.
Yes.
All right.
All right.
So
Yes, sir.
you said we still have not received any trucks from 2022 or 23?
We've received a couple trucks from 2022, and that was slide number.
By and large, they're not coming in. And if I'm not mistaken, the prices that we were
Yes.
quoted are never valid when the truck actually shows up. They want to charge us an extra $30,000.
So I've come before the commission, and we've had some surcharge adjustments, and those were my 2022 purchases, which I should be getting later this fall. I've been promised the checks in the mail coming here. I have also been told that those surcharges will not be affecting my 2023 purchases that I came in front of the commission this past February or March. So I've been told that those surcharges will not be there.
So we're not going to be in a situation where we approve $1.3 million in trucks, and then a year from now, we're going to have to adjust that to 1.5.
I cannot give 100% certainty that, that will occur, but everything that we've been told from our manufacturers is those surcharge adjustments are a thing of the past, and that was because of the supply chain disruption that occurred back in 2021, 2022.
Okay, and then also, with us not getting these when we're expecting them, this 5-year has now become 6 and 7 years.
Exactly. But the good part about it is that trade-in amount that they promise us, that they're honoring that, whatever that trade-in amount that they gave us back in 2022. So even though we've given another 18 months of use on that vehicle with God knows how many miles, they're still honoring that trade-in allowance.
So would it be beneficial, since we're having such a hard time getting these trucks, at least temporarily, to maybe out of the 5 or 6 that we're replacing, figure out which one's the best one and kind of just keep it instead as a backup? I mean, instead of trading it in. I mean, it seems like if we're having such a hard time getting them, maybe we need to try and extend the life of 1 or 2.
We have 5 backup trucks. So on our rear loads, we have 5. We have 2 side loads and then 2 front loads as well. So we do have some backup capabilities in there, and that's just, you know, when the vehicles are down for service or whatever reason. So we do have some backup capability built into our system.
I assume you're like rotating those in
Yeah.
for maintenance on other trucks and
Yes.
things like that, so, okay.
And those are typically our oldest in the fleet, so we don't have, our newest are not the backups, obviously.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. Good.
The slide you just had, there we go. It looks like, you said you're on a 5-year rotation on equipment?
Yeah, other than the spillage, you know, the carryover.
Right.
Yeah.
It looks like, okay, you've got 3 years that are about the same, and then you have 2 years that are lower. Would it make sense to rework that so that you're still on a 5-year plan, but that it's more even throughout those 5 years, so you don't have, you know,
We've made
3 years that are
yeah.
high and 2 years that are low?
We've made some adjustments. 2025 was supposed to be, initially, it was, if you go back and look at last year, if I remember, it was very high, and I moved a couple trucks over to 2026. I'm not comfortable stretching everything out to 2027, obviously, but we did move some in there.
Yeah, I think it would just be
Yeah.
helpful if it was
Yeah.
more level every year.
Yeah. And, you know, we're trying to get there. Yep.
Okay.
You run your pickups on a 5-year rotation as well, or is that?
Pickups, they're a little bit more durable.
Yeah.
And so we have some that are older. We kind of, well, actually, we don't have any that's really, really, really old. In fact, we have a pretty new fleet, actually, but we do have some that are getting up there. I think we have one of our Trailblazers, a 2008, that'll be coming up that we're trying to get rid
Are
of.
they on a lease, or are they?
No, sir.
Have you thought about looking at least for pickups?
We did, and because of the license and everything that, you know, the modifications that we do, it didn't work out for us. All right, so here's the budget that I'm proposing for you. It is a $876,000 increase, or 5.5% increase. So my budget will be $16.7 million. That is what I'm requesting, and that's just kind of a overview of how we have grown. The major increases that I'm looking at is contractual services. So Kurt has asked for some money for the old landfill maintenance. WM with my recycling fees, that is an estimated $500,000 to $600,000 this year alone increase, as well as Rolling Meadows CPI increases. Route work fees are stable, and then my wages. So again, contractual service and wages that basically make up the bulk of my budgetary increase. That being said, I stand by for your questions, gentlemen.
That recycle, was that? Was that an increase for recycling?
Yes, yes. Because again, last year, we made a little bit of money on recycle, but with the new contract, with that initial $139 processing fee, our monthly invoice is anywhere between $40,000 and $50,000 that we pay for recycling.
Yes.
So, you had a slide on there, I believe it said we lost 10% of our recycling business. And a lot of those were people that were probably recycling things that shouldn't be recycled, plus our contamination rate's down
Yep.
considerably. So the recycling program and also we got rid of glass a couple of years ago
Yes,
too. So I would assume that the recycling program is actually probably saving money now compared to what it was doing maybe 2 years ago. I know the prices went up
Right.
from waste management, but I mean, over time, are we gonna see a need for maybe one less recycling truck?
That is a very good observation. We are looking into that, because right now, those 10% are scattered throughout the county. So that's about 5,000 stops.
Still gotta drive the same
Still
routes.
gotta drive.
Yeah, so we're looking to see where we can kind of shift some stuff. And the way the routes were constructed back in 2018 with the red weeks and the blue weeks, I have red inside the city, which makes 0 sense, so I can't really adjust that without, so the short answer to a long question is a reroute is coming at some point, so we can adjust everything and make it make sense to us. But yes, there is opportunities for a possible elimination of one of those routes.
And has the rate at which people are dropping recycling,
It's
you
slow-
notice, is it slowed down?
Yes, it has slowed down considerably. There is a mad rush, obviously, back in January, February, March, when the news came out, and then it's really tapered off this past 2 months.
And have you noticed any kind of a trend with new signups? Like when somebody moves and they set up a water and trash bill with the city, are they taking the recycling? Are they giving that option, or?
They are given the option. We work well with the city of Topeka, so they are very aware of what's going on. So they present the option to the customers now. Do you want recycling? It'll be an additional $3.50. So back in the day, or prior to this year, you know, they just got a recycling can
Right.
and did whatever with it. But now they actually have a choice.
Okay.
And it's 50-50 whether or not we get them or not.
I was watching a thing on it was like a news little segment, and they were talking about recycled plastic and how much of it's unusable. And it was incredible how much plastic that goes into recycling facilities that's not used at all.
Yes.
I was amazed that it's a pretty low percentage that's actually used to recycle. But, anyway, some free information. Thank you, Bill. Keep America beautiful.
Hello.
Shawnee
Hi.
County.
I'm Brittany Laughlin, the Executive Director for Keep America Beautiful, and this is my first time being in one of these, so just bear with me. I am happy to answer any questions. Just wanted to say we had a great cleanup this year. I think it's one of the biggest cleanups we've had. We picked up about 6.5 tons of trash this year, and 4.5 tons of that was from the city, so we're really excited about that. And then also working with Bill closely about maybe getting some recycling programs going for the education for the kids, and maybe educating the kids would also help educate those adults in the home. So then maybe our base for recycling would go up a little bit and have more of less contamination and loads as well. And then also talking about composting, because recycling is tough, but composting is really one of the key factors we need in our community. And I've been looking at what San Diego has been doing. They're one of the most top cities out there that have a good plan ahead for the sustainability programs. So just kind of try to mirror some of that stuff. They do focus on composting and education, so getting those kids educated, I think, is what's going to hit the most. So
When you go to conferences and stuff, are you hearing anything about expanding manufacturing in the United States that uses recycled material? It just seems like, we had a big market with China a number of years ago, and that just dried up almost overnight, and it just made a lot of plastics just unusable. Are you hearing of anybody creating new facilities that'll handle? Because like we're paying money to have things recycled now, where it used to be we'd get a check back at the end of the year, and so is there anything afoot to do that type of manufacturing or?
yeah, so what I've been kind of hearing is just from the conference I just attended in El Paso, Texas, a lot of people aren't really recycling as much or more reusing things. So instead of recycling, finding a different use, such as those 2-liter bottles, I found a way to make it at-home compost kit, so we can kind of incorporate that. But there's really not per se a bunch of programs out there. But I'm hoping that maybe this next year I can go to the conference for Keep America Beautiful in Washington. It was just cold this year, so I wasn't able to go. But I'm hoping maybe that would bring me a little more education on that side, because I would like to deal with that. I mean, that's a problem we're having in our society. So
It just, well, you can see the graphs, everything's just pretty much flat. And I think it's mainly because we just don't have facilities that will handle those materials and do something with them. And there are uses for a lot of those things. All right.
So we have last year, the year before, we set up a program with Mars to, they did an Adopt a Roadway program out on Gary Ormsby Drive. And it's the first time that Shawnee County's ever done a partnership like that. Have you heard from any other companies about any kind of partnerships like that
Yeah.
you might, if you do, please send them our way, because I think it's a great program. We'd like to continue it.
okay. Yeah, the only people right now that I'm in good contact with Mars, so keeping that relationship, of course, is good. They're very valuable to our community because they do recognize, the waste and stuff like that. But I just recently reached out to the downtown Topeka, so we're hoping, I heard about their cleanup efforts and everything like that. So maybe doing the riverfront cleanup. I know that Bill and I have talked about that in the past and focusing a little more on doing some more river cleanups as well. So just kind of try to balance my time there, but definitely keeping my ears out for anything that would help with our community in that aspect.
Great.
And then we also have, maybe we're focusing on another cleanup, because I know we have the Get Down and Get Dirty, but our board and us and I really feel it's important to have more than just one cleanup. I mean, trash is all year, so maybe after the kids get into school, having like a widespread with schools, having the excitement of kids coming back and let's clean up our school, and just having another cleanup or something like that, and then incorporating the other folks in downtown and all of the Shawnee County area as well. So
Okay. Thank you.
Any
Great.
questions?
Great.
Thank you, Brenda.
Thank you.
thank you.
I'm ready.
All right. Mary, we'll go with your, now do the CRC budget here.
Thank you.
I'm old school, I still do paper.
Yep.
It's just easier with this many figures. I'll do this when I'm done, no problem. Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. Mary Thomas with Community Resources Council. Good to see you all again, Miss Betty. As I said, old school, you've got your paper in front of you. If I could take a moment and just add on a little bit to Miss Laughlin's discussion. You may recall last year when we were together, I noted that KAB was in transformation, if you will, and CRC came forward and we worked the net for that board to sort of reconfigure when they had an emergency loss of their new executive director. They needed time to drop back, figure out how they wanted to go forward with a part-time executive director, because it's about 10 to 12 hours on average per week. And right now, in an employee market, that's at a $30,000 salary with no benefits. There's not a lot of appetite for that out there. So we stepped in, worked things out, gave that board time to decide how they wanted to go forward. And so CRC took on the duty as fiscal agent, and we remain so today. And then we had staff with Ms. Laughlin, who is our communications director, but also has a degree in graphic design. Also then giving her an opportunity to have a bit of a career path, was interim executive director, and she did the job so well, the board just hired her. So we worked out a partnership where she's part-time for CRC, and I have sort of management oversight, if you will, about KAB, Brittany runs the program. We work with Bill in tandem on making all this work in kind of the new world of recycle. You know, we're 10 years in, Waste Management decided to change the deal, that's fine. You know, the market's changed as well, so everybody has to kind of sharpen their pencil. So we are really working hard to re-educate. We're designing programs right now with Bill to re-educate recycling, because we're doing it wrong. Not because it's purposeful most of the time. Sometimes it's just a trash bin is a trash bin. And that's where you saw that decline quickly, which was good, because then everything was contaminated and nothing was recycled. So we've got a lot of moving parts right now. The board is strong. Brittany is strong. She's just about 10 months into the position as a full-time, part-time executive director, and then working for us as well with CRC management oversight. So with that said, I'm going to back up to the last page that you have and just give you a quick oversight of the Keep America Beautiful budget, since that's kind of what we're responsible for. We watch the pennies, we pay the bills, we take care, we're growing the money a little bit. We had a little bit of money, so Core First has a lovely 11-month 5.09% CD, so we put a little bit of money away for a rainy day to make sure that we can sustain. This budget that I've presented to you as far as what KAB is requesting from the county is exactly what has been requested the last several years. I know that we dovetail under the waste management budget, but I wanted to set this out for you specifically. I don't know how it was done in the past. I didn't have much of a path to follow. So I just started from whole cloth, so you can see where we're at, what we're thinking our expenses will be for the total year, and I'm happy to stand for questions on this piece before I move on to what CRC is doing in other parts for the community.
Questions?
I don't have any questions.
Lovely. I love no questions. That means I've got it right for you. So, the letter that you have, it's sort of the same thing that you've seen from time to time, refreshed with all of the different things that we continue to do. The bottom line with that, all that verbiage is, during the pandemic, the two organizations that CRC manages on behalf of social services that are county supported, everything receded, obviously, and all on the backs of volunteers. There wasn't a lot of interest of getting out there in the community during times of difficulty. So CRC stepped up. We did all of the sort of oversight work that the voting members would do by and large for the Advocacy Council on Aging, which was part of what their deal is, but they're still volunteers. Well, they loved it, so now we just do it all, and that's fine. That's part of what you're paying for here. We visit every agency during the course of the year, sometimes more than once. I work in partnership with them monthly for sure, sometimes more often. We seem to be the resource they reach out for when they're either stuck or they need a contact or they're not sure how to go forward with something. But we do get on site, we do review the programming, we look at the head count. It's not really a drive-by. It is, they do know we're coming, but it's not by any stretch orchestrated. So we see the folks that are there. We know who's taking advantage of the programming. We see what they're doing. We have their newsletters every month. We have their calendar every month. We know what they're offering. They collaborate well, four actually, East Topeka Senior Center, LULAC of Topeka in Oakland, Pappin's Landing in North Topeka, and then Silver Lake out in West Shawnee County. Those are the four active senior agencies that a lot of what we do works to support what they're doing. And so we're talking about the spreadsheet that's got Advocacy Council of Aging across the top. We're looking at a 2% increase from last year's award. Again, I ask these agencies to mind their budget carefully. We're not interested, it's not a game with us as far as if you think you need 30,000, put in 40 and you hope that we'll settle on 35. We just don't run that way. These volunteer committees review previous budgets, they look at the outcome, they look at the non-duplicated counts. For your Advocacy Council on Aging agencies as a whole, they reached an unduplicated count of around 10,000. Now, that's a little bit of a misnomer because for your four senior centers, they're seeing the same people every month. So that number you can extrapolate out over a 12-month period. So for instance, East Topeka Senior Center on a monthly basis serves 368 individuals, but then you take that out over a 12-month period. Each one of these senior centers is open through the week, every day through almost the entire day. They have buses that get out and bring folks in who can't find their own way, and they support them with personal questions and issues, kind of minding their way through paperwork for seniors that I'm sure you can appreciate is never ending and is always confusing. And sometimes when they get stuck, they come find us. So then there's some additional agencies that work through this grant process, like Kansas Legal Services. All of that money there is exclusively for aging programming. They are out in the community. They do workshops within the various agencies at JAAA, also at CRC, helping with end-of-life documents, also answering questions about how to navigate senior issues. Also, JAAA is in here. That's a complete senior program doing nothing but having navigators by appointment where they can help folks navigate through the Medicare issues, the supplemental insurance issues, the Medicaid issues, and so on. CHAMPS and the other programming that is available to seniors that they're inundated with by marketing, but they truly don't understand, and it's hard to know what to do and where you're going to get scammed. So a lot of our education at CRC was we start every month's program with a 15 to 20 minute education, and a lot of that this year has been focused on what the latest scam is, either through the Attorney General's office, Shawnee County District Attorney's office, and we've also had the state aging and the scams that are going on that they see. You can't stay ahead of that business lately. So before I drone on anymore, let me just see if you have any questions about what we're doing in senior programming, which is the lion's share of the grant that comes out of Shawnee County on an annual basis.
Aging in place through the
Habitat?
Habitat.
Yes.
And that's one of the larger increase requests. So what are we doing? Are we just adding additional services? Are we?
Actually, it is the same program. It gets a little refined each year, and you can see when the program started, and it was a result of the county being able to grant a cornerstone, if you will. The request for assistance and the list every year that grows to do certain things like taking care of leaking windows, taking care of a leaking roof, taking care of guttering. If you can stop water issues, you can then stop mold and all those things that eventually will send an elderly person out of their home, because now the cost to rehab, mitigate and rehab is off the charts. And this is the number one thing that Habitat has found on a national basis causes the elderly who are living in a home that's paid for on a modest Social Security and maybe a little bit of pension. They can't deal with, don't understand to deal with, and then a $1,200 problem, $2,000 problem now is a $12,000 problem. So because of this service, it has grown across the community, and it really is keeping aging in place a true statement. They are staying in their home longer. They have a cap on what's available through the request or application process, and there's a bit of a means test, but it doesn't take much to qualify when you're talking about elderly on a fixed income. And this program, they come before the committee every year, show their outcomes, show the numbers that they've increased, and they use this stake money to multiply it 4 times over within the community as a match fund. Janice takes that money and goes out and then works it to find match funding, so that she's got really about 4 times what we see here to put into that program, and still they can't meet the need. But I appreciate you asking, because that's one of the shining pieces of what you folks are funding. Sounds like I'm moving on. So the other spreadsheet, which is I'm going to call non-senior social service programming in the community, And we make a very specific effort to make sure that there's no cross-pollination here. I go through it all when it comes in. And we run these grant processes a month apart so that there is time to review. Committees sometimes overlap, but there's always new people in each review committee too. These are services, let me take legal services, because you can see that they're on your senior programming, but they also have 2 programs that they have under regular social services. And these are protection issues in domestic and civil problems. And then they also have some Social Security non-senior. These are folks that have, they have debilitating problems, whether it's long-term, short-term, children without parents, those sorts of things that need to navigate through the government system to either get the assistance they need or have an advocate that can work through the administrative law for them. So there's a little bit of overlap as far as the agencies you see from the 2 spreadsheets, but I can tell you the programming is very different. I make sure that they're very different, the budgets are different, and I am confident to tell you there's no cross-pollination in this funding. They're careful, and because I snarl at them. We don't have really any new agencies from the last couple of years. A lot of it is the same work that you've seen. On the non-program, senior programming, the need is unbelievable. I don't know. A while back, I testified before the commission that at this point, the last report of the Homeless Task Force, which meets monthly, there's over 1,000 families on that wait list for rental assistance of the new EAS program that I worked with the city to develop last fall and launch, which is a lovely program in that it's one place where all the vetting is done, and then if they qualify for the same service across the community, then they will refer that out for assistance to those that have the income. Each week, the agency reports income back to the city, so they know what pool of money they have to work with, which it sounds like one-stop shop, and I hate that term, but these families that we were dealing with, they would call us for resources. We would give them 5 or 6 phone numbers and try to tell them how to work through the program, what to ask for, what you're doing. And then they would, a lot of them are on a minutes cell phone each month, and they would waste so much of their allotted minutes that they've paid for trying to dial for dollars. And it just became unmanageable. And so the city stepped in with this program as a pilot to see if we could mitigate some of those expenses. And these also, every time they have to call and beg for money, you just steal their dignity, every piece, every step of the way. So we were trying to, I think it works, but the problem is the money's gone because the money has shut off from DC, as we knew it was coming. So CARES is gone. That was a lovely program, but folks, somebody paid your rent for 8 months, you diverted that money someplace else. And they're out of the habit of paying that on time now, and they're in trouble. And there is nothing for us to give them. No agencies have anything. So our homeless is going to increase for a while, and we're dealing with that on a community level. But you can see these agencies here are primarily emergency fund agencies to either feed, help with utility assistance, or rent assistance. And all of these agencies are part of the Homeless Task Force, so each family only gets one shot at it every 12 months. So we have the frequent flyer is weeded out, if you will. There's always a few that know how to take advantage of the situation, but by and large, I'd say the money goes as far as it possibly can within the community without repetitive granting. Questions I can answer? And just as a number, so that you know, in the non-senior programming, the unduplicated count was just about 20,000. Now, a lot of that's because they're feeding, and so it's easy for that number to rack up quickly. But that's how far that money is spreading within the community, and that's roughly not even 300,000. So again, they take this cornerstone money, I call it, and they get out and they hustle for match money, which they are very good at. What do you think, gentlemen? Anything I can answer for you? No?
I don't have any questions regarding the proposal. Thank you.
Hot dog, I must really be doing my job. Oh, and just as a sidebar, in case you weren't aware, in continuing our partnership with 501, CRC took a third building this past fall. I don't know why, because I can't clone yet, but we are now also managing CRC at Stout, which is at 2303 on College, a block from the Washburn campus. So we're sort of southeast, Oakland, Northeast, and now Midtown, all in LMI neighborhoods. I already have it full with not-for-profits rocking and rolling, so I can tell you the philanthropic spirit is strong in this community. Thank you so much for your time.
That they still have money that they are distributing out?
You know, there's some rumor running around, and I think they're still calling it Spark, but I don't know for sure.
Right.
They're sitting on some money.
They are, and that's
And-
why I wondered, I don't know what the programs they've released.
They
but
are
that
not
was-
talking about what they're gonna do with it, but I got a lot of people, you know, kind of turning the dirt, trying to figure it out. So if I find out, I'll let you know, because everybody's got their pencil sharp, ready to go.
Yeah, 'cause I know
Assuming,
there is still money there
Yeah.
for them to distribute. That was the
yeah,
reason
they're
I
assuming
thought.
there's gonna be an application process, but everybody's just kind of holding their breath.
Okay.
Thank you so much, y'all. Have a good day.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Mary.
You, Mary?
John? We are ready for noxious weed department.
No,
I think we're good.
we want to get going.
You've had enough.
Oh, I forgot to tell you, just bring your granddaughter to work day. This is She's learning how this stuff works.
Thanks for coming in.
Yeah.
Very good.
Take it away.
Take it away.
Yeah, you're ready.
Well, good morning, gentlemen. John Landon, the weed department here. Today, I'm here to present my budget for 2024. I just want to walk you through our mission statement here real quick. Shawnee County Weed Department enforces the Kansas Noxious Weed Law. Our responsibilities are, first, education, enforcement, and control. We emphasize on education before we send out any letters to any landowners. We make contact with them, let them know what the weed is that they have, try to educate them on it. A lot of people we find don't know what it is. They've moved out into the county and are new to this. And so a lot of it is education before we get into the enforcement part. So that's mainly what we focus on. We're governed by the Kansas Noxious Weed Law and directed by Shawnee County Board of County Commissioners. Report to Public Works Director, and then myself, and then the staff. Here's our organizational chart, how we're set up currently. Myself as the director on that pesticide applicator part. We have a recent vacant spot there. And then we have another full-time applicator, Elmer Romick. And then we have Cletus. He's a retiree from the weed department. He's a part-time intermittent employee. He works 7:30 to about 11:30-ish every day. Some days are a little sooner, and some days are just a hair longer. And then on the office side of it, we have Sarah Bailey, who's our recent hire that we hired from the career fair that we had at the health department. Great find. She's doing a wonderful job. She's been with us. Yesterday was her 3-month anniversary date. Outstanding. I couldn't say any more good things about her. And then we hire a seasonal customer service rep to do the chemical sales out there for the customers. It's Tyler DeWitt. He's been with us for since 2020, since I started now. So he comes back every year and does that part-time for us. So a little bit about what we do. This slide is going to show up more in my presentation on Monday, but I'm just gonna run through a little bit. We do all the noxious weed work for Shawnee County, all of our right-of-way. We do KDOT, 12 townships, Wakarusa Watershed, Call Drainage District, Tri-County Drainage District, City of Topeka Stormwater, Shawnee County Parks and Rec, Shawnee County Solid Waste, which when you total all that up, it don't give you an acreage wise, but I can give you roughly about 2,400 miles of road that we maintain within Shawnee County. And our target goal is to do that 3 times a year. So it's a lot of ground. And then when you add, KDOT's right of way is not typical county right of way. It's more than 15 feet. They own a lot. And so it's real hard to get an estimated acreage for that. But, from a road mileage standpoint, Public Works figures a lot of things on a center line mile, which works great when you're doing road maintenance. But for us, we can't do both sides of the road. So we have to do one side and then turn around and drive back the other side. And so that's why the mileage is high. So that's a little bit about what we do. My budget at a glance from last year, there's about there is a $53,592 difference. A little bit of that is in just fuel and some odd costs like that. The majority of that, though, commissioners, is I'm requesting another applicator for next year, another full-time applicator. So notables out of there, like I said, the request for the additional full-time applicator position, and the need is there for us. So when we lost that applicator last month, that reduced our workforce by half. And so then you have John going out doing the spraying, because as we get through the slide presentation here, I'm going to show you that some of our stuff is done with reimbursements. So our costs are lower because we reimburse that money back. And so what we're going to do is that part-time seasonal applicator position, the one that works half the day, we're going to do away with that position and hope to make that a full-time position. There's other increases in licensing fee for the additional Category 5 that the applicators got. So now our applicators were all licensed to do aquatic applications as well. So they have 9, 6, and then 5, which is right away, and then noxious weed control, and then all aquatics. Some additional increases in fuel, fluids, insurance premiums, and recycling. We recycle all of our boxes and all of our plastic jugs over there at the weed department, which is a lot. And then some just administrative charges down the board that on just different various line items as well. Reimbursements on, this is actually showing you kind of what we've done to reduce the intermittent. As you can see, last year it was at $27,600 is what we had for those intermittent employees. That's that part-time applicator and the seasonal person inside the office. We reduced that down to $15,600. So that savings of, roughly $14,000 there. We would use that toward the full-time applicator position. That's kind of what that slide shows there. This slide shows what we've done from 2020 all the way through 2024 to reduce some of these costs. That's the paper that I handed you out there in front of you. As you can see, in the top line under intermittents, there's that $27,600 that we requested last year. This year we're requesting $15,600 for that remainder of that reimbursement to go toward that full-time person. We increased that wage, that reimbursement to $24,000. We did that, we did it in 22. It was at $18,600 and we increased it to reimburse $24,000 of that $30,000, or that, of our actual $30,000 that we spent there. Then you have the chemical reimbursements there. You'll see those as we budget $150,000 and $1,025 is the reimbursement for that. That's basically less the 25% that we cost share. And then our equipment reimburses, we increased that in 23 from $10,500. We increased it to that reimbursement to $20,500. So as we streamline things and get more efficient, bill out more work, then we increase those reimbursement numbers to offset some of those costs that our budget would raise typically. Those numbers are low. When you look at that, you'll see, the main thing that stands out to me anyway, I don't know if it does to you guys, you'll see that our actual was 45,000 and we're only reimbursing 20,000 of that. And so one of the questions is, well, John, doesn't that reimbursement seem a little low? So it is low, and part of the reason why it's low is our equipment, our leases for our equipment is not out of our budget. It comes out of our capital outlay. And as Betty and I have talked before, it kind of really doesn't really make a difference whether it's a budgeted item, because then this comes out of our capital outlay. It would kind of offset, so it doesn't really matter. So I keep those reimbursements relatively low because we got to be sure that we transfer at the end of the year roughly $30,000 over to our capital outlay to make those lease payments throughout the month.
Can I just
Yes,
explain
ma'am.
that a little bit? Just to remind you all, by Kansas law, anything that's left in his budget at the end of the year can be transferred over to his equipment fund. So that's where, what he's talking about, these lease payments are set up so that they are paid out of that equipment fund, so.
And I think to me, it's an easier way to do it. I guess you could always show it in the budget and then you would have to do the reimbursements, but I don't.
Well, and I think the reason it's set up that way, so that then if he has, money in there, that fund can build up. If he needs something that's a larger amount, he might have to, wait for 2 years to build it up or something. But at
Right.
least he doesn't lose that, whatever is left in his budget, like all the other departments do.
And you'll see on some of our CIP requests, that's, when the funding source don't come from you guys, it comes from our capital outlay. That's where that money comes from.
Yes.
So,
And that's set up by state statute.
yes. Mhm.
Yes. Public Works and noxious weeds are the only two that are allowed that by state statute.
And really, it kind of makes sense to me because it's like an equipment fund, building fund, anything to deal with noxious weeds. It kind of makes sense that it pays for the leases of the truck out of it. It kind of more of a tracking issue. Here's what our staff organizational chart would look like. Pretty much the same as this is our current one. And so if you was to grant that full-time applicator, it would look identical to this, except we would just replace that intermittent employee with a full-time applicator position and we would have 3. And as I was referring back to that, when you take this vacant spot that I have here, based on our reimbursements, that means that those guys have really got to get out there every day. They've got to hustle. They've got to bill the agencies that we do contract work for, because if those numbers fall short, then it affects my budget. If I don't make my reimbursement numbers, then ultimately that comes out of my budget. And so when I'm down a guy, that's the reason why you see John all nice and tan and out spraying, is because there's a huge impact at the end of the day, at the end of the year, I guess I should say, of if we don't meet those reimbursements. And so, not to mention, we signed a contract with them to do the work, and, we obligated to fulfill it, and so anyway, that's what it would look like there, the organizational chart. And gentlemen, I would stand for any questions you might have. I know I breezed through it pretty quick.
Mr. Mays.
So how long has that one position been vacant?
He probably 4 weeks, 5 weeks now.
So like the absolute worst time for you to have a
The
vacancy?
the very absolute worst time it could possibly happen, it happened.
Okay. Is it posted?
It is posted.
Have you had any applicants?
We've had one that didn't show up for the interview.
Okay.
So it must be just a hair under 4 weeks, because I think tomorrow actually it will qualify for the hiring bonus. So we're right at 4 weeks then.
Okay.
And so, yeah, if it would happen any other time besides April through August, we'd have been okay. But,
Well, and I'm curious if, let's say you get somebody that comes in and maybe they're not they're not licensed already, how long does it take somebody to get their applicator license?
So on the position description, we give them 90 days to do it, Commissioner Mays. And that's, right now, it would be a tough go for somebody to do it because they're working a full-time job. They're trying to learn as they go, which helps them a little bit, but they're also trying to study. Typically, the slower months are a little easier for them because there's a little bit more time for them to study. Honestly, Shane, the person who vacated this position, he was on his third year, and he was just now getting to where he had, he could identify the weeds really well, knew what chemicals to use really well. So it's a process. It is a long process.
Kind of depends on how much knowledge they have.
Yeah, depending on how much knowledge, and he had zero when he started. I invested a lot in him and hated to see him go, but, completely understand. But I think, I just got to thinking here, when I did that my CIP stuff didn't show up, and so therefore I didn't talk about it. There it is. Well, I'm sorry. But anyway, I guess I'm not
So
done.
can they operate under your license then for temporarily?
They can, yes.
So you could if you got somebody in, you could have them on a gator out spraying.
They can, and so part of that is I'm very cautious about that because keep in mind, when they operate under my license, any violations that happen under there happen to me. They don't
Yeah.
happen to the county, they happen to me. And so part of the requirement for me to work for you is I have to have those licenses. And so if they was to do something wrong and the state pulls that license, I lose my license. Now you have to find yourself another director.
Gotcha.
And so currently Cletus, our part-time guy, he works under mine. And it's a trust issue. I mean, he completely understands what weeds are. And so I don't know that I'd turn somebody out there just fresh in a week, but as time goes and I think you comprehend what we're doing and know what you're doing with the chemicals, then yes, I'd turn you loose.
So question on the vacancy also, have you talked with 4-H at all, to see if maybe they've got some kids that'll
We've
do
reached out
summertime
to Washburn, 4-H, just a lot of different, the high schools in their ag program to see if they had any interest or anybody that was graduating that might have any interest, and really hadn't found anybody. Had high hopes for the guy who applied. He worked at a couple different lawn care companies, but so.
Gotcha. All right.
So let me get to my CIP stuff real quick.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, guys. And so in 23, this is just an update, this first one here. In 23, you approved the forklift. It was ordered September 23rd of 2022. We still don't have an official delivery date yet. We're expecting it sometime in 24. It's crazy that it takes 600 and some days to build a forklift, but it is what it is, I guess. And so the other one's still holding up pretty decent. Mechanic's been out working on it several times, but we're getting by. So, but it's in the process. It's coming, and we'll eventually get here.
Or Vermeer. Was that a Vermeer?
It's a Yale.
Where are they made?
They're made overseas in Germany, I think it was.
Okay.
Don't quote me on that, but I know they're overseas.
Okay.
A local company here in town is where we got it from. The building, just sitting there, 23 through 27 is actually when it was slated. So we really haven't done much to it. Well, we've done a lot to the building to improve it and make it look nice, but we're just kind of saving money and waiting for 27 to get here and the perfect spot to arise. The only new thing I added for 2025 was, I know you gentlemen are very well aware that we've been doing a lot of drone applications through third-party companies, through Ag Partners and Rise UAV out of Colorado. This program is, guys, it's it's a thing of the future. This is where this is where everything's headed to. And this is great, because you look at that Shot Rock area down by the Kansas River levee, and to think that those guys used to work on that unstable rock and drag a hose down there and spray every bit of that, and now we can set up on the levee and do this with this drone technology is just amazing. You know, this is probably not an everyday deal. I mean, I don't think you would ever find a time, I would never find a time that you would apply herbicides to the right-of-way along K4 or, you know, 46th Street or 45th Street, anything like that, just because of the distraction. But, you know, all these areas that we take care of for Shunganunga, all the Shot Rock down in there, Ward Martin Creek, I mean, the list goes on and on and on, that this kind of technology, it just would improve everything that we do. Roughly right now, we've probably got, I'd say we're pushing about the $7,000 or $8,000 mark that we've contracted out with companies, and still got several $1,000s worth of stuff to do. We're going to utilize these. We got Rise UAV out of Colorado coming down to spray the lagoons for Public Works to get rid of their duckweed. So with part of that sonar application is our trucks can only shoot out about 30 feet, and so the whole pond's encapsulated with it. And so my worry was, if I can't, with no wave action, with that mat being so thick, with no wave action, I can't get that chemical out to the center, we may not get it. So they're gonna fly this drone over the ponds and treat the duckweed with it, and hopefully have great luck with it. So
We used to back up an outboard motor on a boat into the pond and dump the sonar in
and just
hopefully-
push it out that way.
That was it.
Well, anything to get it to move out there. I mean, I just couldn't figure out how in the world. I told Kurt when we visited about this, I said, you know, I think we'll have a great kill for 30 feet, but with that mat so thick out there, I just don't know. And then he's coming back to do that. The thing about sonar is you have to raise it up to 900 parts per billion, and then 30 days come back there and increase that level back up there to actually get a good kill on that duckweed. So a little bit of knowledge for you for duckweed. This was actually put in 2025, commissioners, and to be honest, you know, with staffing the way it was, this may get pushed back. You know, I really wanted to have this in place in '24. I'm super excited about this, and I know a year or two ago, when I started looking at these things, I had no interest in drone technology, didn't know anything about it, and as I got more involved with it, I become very excited and wanted to get into '24, but was just kind of waiting to be sure that staffing issues were there. You know, I think when we invest this kind of money in getting a pilot all licensed and certified, that, you know, we want to be sure that we're going to have longevity and keep that employee around. And so, again, you know, depending on how this vacancy goes and possibly the addition of a new position, that this may get pushed to 2026 till we can assure that we have somebody that's going to be committed. So.
Yes.
I would just make the comment that since this is going to be funded from your equipment fund, even though it is slated for a certain year, you know, generally '24 is the only year that is approved, and that's mostly concrete for the capital outlay
Right.
plan. If something changed in your situation that you wanted to move it up or move it back, this is just a plan.
Yeah.
So you could always come to the commission and ask to do it in '24 or
Yeah.
'26. I think, Jennifer, you had something?
I was just curious, for your drone application, does it take about the same amount of man-hours as application on a vehicle?
So it does not actually. It takes less because it moves. We can preset the speed that we want it to fly at, the height that we want it to fly at, and the application rate that we want it to apply it at. And so it actually, we did this whole. It's 15 acres is what this levee was, and typically a guy walking that rock or just shooting that stuff from the top that we could get, it takes them about 3 days to get all that, and we did the drone application in about 7 hours. So, gentlemen, I'm sure you're aware we did buy a little drone, but the little drone is for mapping and identifying weeds. It's utilizing Pix 4D technology, and we're using that just for our state program right now to inspect properties. The state sends over 10 locations, 640 acres in each location, to identify noxious weeds, and that's what they report and show as weed infestations in Shawnee County. And so we've used it to fly over the old landfill and identify all the weeds in the old landfill. Seems to be working great. You know, a lot of this technology can be switched over to this one. We could fly an area like what they've done. They brought in their little drone. They flew this levee to get the acreage and the elevations of it, and then they took that information and they mapped it and put it over into the big drone and said, okay, now go do the work. And the nice thing about it is it pretty much flies itself. I mean, you have to launch it, you have to put the chemical in it, and you have to change the battery, but outside of that, it goes up to the height that it wants to go to. It flies itself. It tells you, hey, I need to come back and replace the battery. It comes back, you replace the battery, give it a little pat and say, go back to work, and off it goes.
Looks like a small reservoir. It's like it has to be filled up a lot.
Yeah, this
probably.
one is about 8 gallons, and so we put it down, when we did that, we put it down about
Carry.
6 gallons to the acre, and so we were a little bit more than a tank, or a little bit less than a tank on a trip. So I think it returned about 15 times, right at 15 times to fill, but you know, it was quick. I think between filling and changing the battery and getting it back up in the air, and it goes right back where it left off. I mean, it knows where it left off, and so all you do is when you say launch, it goes right back to where it left off, and it starts right there again and carries on.
That's great.
And so it was down on the ground for 15 minutes or less. So really super excited about that. But enough anyway from me. Happy to answer any questions you have now.
Questions?
I feel like we were asking questions all along.
John referenced Monday work session. He's going to be doing a little more detailed presentation of what all they do. And
Yes, I am. Boy, bring your coffee that morning, because I'm going to give you the crash course in what the weed department does, who we do it for, and how everything works. I'm going to give you the crash course from 2020 on. Everything that we've changed, probably some things you're not going to want to see or want to hear, but you know, you're going to know at the end of the day, you're going to know what the weed department does now and how we do it. So
Looking forward to it.
I don't want to bore you. I've taken out, the good news is I've taken out all the weeds that we don't have in Shawnee County and only kept the ones that are predominantly here. So that's going to cut an hour and a half off our presentation right
Good.
away.
thank you, John.
You're welcome, gentlemen.
Nice.
Should I just dive right in, or do you need
yes.
to wait?
Time, yes.
Okay. Helping Hands for 2024 is requesting $146,000 for the projected intake of 1,100 animals for 2024. We are also requesting an update to item number 5 of the current contract, which addresses court hold animals. And in regards to that update, we offer the protective custody or court hold service to both the city, the state, county, and even to other counties. And for everyone, we do charge the same amount for these particular animals, and that's a standard of $14.31 per day. any of these court-hold animals that have to be on medications, that our staff is doing the medications or our veterinarians are, there's an additional charge of $15.90 per day. And the shelter will also offer, if these animals need certain medical issues taken care of, if the county can elect for our veterinarians to do that, then I provide the charges for those services on the back. Of course, the county could elect to have the animal taken by their animal control to a veterinarian of your choice within the community as well. But the county, honestly, you guys, typically the county, I could probably count on two hands in the past 20 years the number of times the county has put an animal on court hold. So I don't actually expect that the county will be doing this anytime soon. But should something happen, obviously we would want you guys to be aware in advance should the issue take place. So those are the two items, the shelter, the $146,000, and the update to the item number 5 that the shelter is requesting for 2024. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Your projected intake for Shawnee County was 1,100 based
Mhm.
on average intakes for 21 and 22.
Mhm.
Are you seeing the number go up, down?
No, the county is really good at hitting 1,100. So for the past like 8 years, we went back, and your swing is basically like 1090 was the lowest, and the highest was like 1120. Like the county is on it on hitting about 1,100. And I looked at it this year, and you guys are almost matching from January to July what you brought in the previous year. So it's looking going that way to be the standard 1,100. Hopefully with some of the programs the shelter's doing now, we can try to get that number down for both the city and the county, the number of animals that are coming into the shelter.
Okay, thank you.
So,
During the whole COVID thing, I read where there was a shortage of pets because people were staying home and they were
yeah.
adopting more animals.
Yep.
Did you see that here?
We saw during COVID, adoptions remained very successful with our shelter. We were one of the few shelters in the country that actually stayed open. So we had people from all across the country coming here to get our pets. Now that COVID is over, we have a flip side where we have particularly too many dogs. Last year and this year, we are overrun with dogs, and I've never seen that in the 20 years I've worked for the shelter. Our population issue has typically always been cats, and now we don't have a problem adopting out cats at all. We are not overrun with cats. We are absolutely overrun with dogs. So it's the struggle is real right now.
I've been in there a couple times this year, and I noticed there seems like predominantly they're pit bulls. Is that what you see?
Yeah. Well, the most common breed of dog we get in at the shelter is a pit bull. They are much harder to adopt out. When we get any other breed of dog, they get adopted immediately. Your pit bulls, particularly your adult male pit bulls, will sit there for months until they get adopted. So, yeah, I mean, we do have plenty of other breeds. It's just you have to be there at just the right time to get them because they get adopted very, very quickly.
All right. Any questions?
So,
No, nothing else from me.
None? All right. Well, thank
okay.
you very much.
Appreciate you coming
You're
in
welcome.
early.
If you have any questions, feel free to contact me.
Okay.